afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you are joining us in another time zone or watching the webinar replay. And welcome to another Community Connect series. I was going to say that wrong to start with. So today we've got the lovely team from Mabel joining us, and we're going to be talking about Your Connections Matter. So what we're going to be covering in today's session is transitioning from building and strengthening your support team through to developing natural safeguards and also adapting to the new way and the new forms of engaging with supports and support workers. So what I thought we might do is, just while everyone's getting themselves logged in and settled down, if you need to grab a cuppa, run away and quickly grab one. We're just going to do some introductions. So we mentioned we've got the fantastic team from Mabel joining us here today. So Meredith, I thought we might throw across to you. Do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Thanks so much, Mel. It's wonderful to be here this afternoon. My name is Meredith Coote, and I'm really lucky to be the General Manager of Mable, of Government Policy and Sector. I think it's important to say that this is not a new conversation today, but it's a really important conversation and a topical conversation, so it's really timely. I've had over 37 years in the sector of experience, and a lot of that's been in guardianship and adult protection. So I think what I've seen is what happens when there aren't connections and when connections go wrong. So this is really important. I guess I've done a lot of work in guardianship. As I said, I've worked in supported decision making, and just some things about me. I'm a mother of two amazing teenagers. One has complex psychosocial needs, who's also an NDIS participant. I'm a wife, a daughter, a colleague, a friend, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about something that matters to all of us. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Meredith, and we're very excited to have you here. And it sounds like you're wearing a lot of different hats in your role, both professionally and personally. Who we might throw across to next is Sarah from the Plan Tracker team, who I know some of you have met before, but Sarah, I think it's important that everyone gets to know you a little bit better. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you so much, Mel. Yes, hi everyone. My name's Sarah, and I'm part of the community engagement team here at Plan Tracker. I'm also a mum, a wife and a daughter. I have two beautiful children, two robust, I'll call them robust for today, aged 10 and 11, and they're both participants on the NDIS scheme as well. I guess, look, if anyone knows me, they know that this is my most favourite topic. It's a topic that this conversation is so close to my heart, and I think that's for two reasons, Mel. I mean, first and foremost is that I have these children who I am carving out, that assisting them, I guess, to start carving out their life vision, you know, and really coming to understand what person-centred planning and supports is all about, and how to build that circle of support around them for their future. So that's part of it. But also at Plan Tracker here, I get the honour of connecting with our community every single day, having those conversations with folks, finding out what supports are important to them, help them brainstorm about reaching out for new supports and reaching their goals and things like that. So I also recognise, I hear from them every day about what the roadblocks are, what are the disappointments, what are the things that they're yet to achieve in their life and in their community. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to join this conversation today.
Beautiful. We're also very excited to have you here, Sarah. And as Meredith mentioned, this isn't a new conversation, and I'm loving that you've shared how passionate you are about having this conversation. Both, again, you've got that professional experience working with our team at Plan Tracker, and also that lived experience with your boys. And I'm sure a lot of other parents would probably potentially use robust as a description from time to time for their kids as well. So yeah, we'll roll with that for today.
Yeah, sure.
We've also got a few other members joining us as our silent partners today, moderating in the chat box. So we have Melanie from the team at Mable and Justine from the team at Plan Tracker. So if you do have any questions, we're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. We have our chat and our Q&A functions, which are available. If you wish to ask our presenters any questions, we'll answer as many as we can throughout the session. If any we don't get to, we will come back to you personally, whichever team is best suited to answer your question for you. We do also ask, if you're using the chat function and you're happy to share your questions or comments with everyone, please use the all attendees and all panelists. If you send it to all panelists, only our lovely team will see it and the rest of our audience won't. We also do have just a few little housekeeping things. You obviously can't turn your video on and off. This is a webinar session, so if you wish to watch a replay with captions, that will be available from tomorrow, and we will be sending that to you all personally. So you'll receive an email during the day tomorrow from me, and that will come through with all of the links that we're sharing during this fantastic webinar. I know Mabel have gone ahead and actually created some resources for you here today, so we're very excited to share those with you. But team, if we're ready, I think without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. So we're talking about Your Connections Matter. I'm just going to pop our slides up on the screen here for everyone. And then what I thought we might do is actually start with a question that came to mind for me, which was, when we think about Your Connections Matter, I'd love to know why. So why do our connections matter, and how can we potentially become better seen, heard and known in our community? So Meredith, if we can start with you, I thought this conversation actually should probably start around community safety and vulnerability. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that today?
Absolutely, Mel. Firstly, we need to remember that being around others is really our key to survival. We gain resources, our loneliness and isolation is reduced, and that collective support of being together with the community keeps us safer, and we really get some support in our decision making. So we remember that we've actually evolved as humans to participate in communities and to forge lasting bonds and help each other to share experiences. So I guess leading on from that, there isn't one person in your life or one provider who can provide all of those supports and meet all your needs and interests. I don't get a list of 10 people who I can choose my friends from. I hopefully look around my community to find people who I connect with. And so looking to the whole community to create a flourishing life is really important. And I think the topical piece is that the South Australian Safeguarding Report recently highlighted this really clearly, that the biggest risk in people's lives is that lack of networks, friends and advocates to really witness, to act on behalf of people, to see what's going on for them. And this really impacts people's safety and confidence and level of vulnerability. And I guess before I go on from that, we know that not everyone's vulnerable who has a disability, but it depends on our circumstances, which might make us more vulnerable. We may have less people in our circle of support, as Sarah said. We may live alone, and we may not have many supports around us. And so the recommendations that came out of that report are really that the more connections you have in your life, the safer you are. And I think that's really important. And we also know, and we probably have to remember, that the ultimate success of the NDIS really depends on people with disability becoming as independent as possible, being really actively engaged in their social, economic and civic life. So that's our goal. So really focusing on those factors is something to keep in the forefront of our minds all the time.
Beautiful. I love that. Now, you mentioned safeguards in there, and we often will hear the term natural safeguards thrown around, but I think for a lot of us in the community, really understanding what a natural safeguard is and maybe what a formal versus an informal, that would be really helpful. Did you want to touch on that a bit, Meredith?
Absolutely. So I think the formal safeguards are the things that we all know about. They're the critical legal frameworks and protections that kind of are around us. So they're really important things like the legislation, the Quality and Safeguards Commission regulations, the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of People with Disability is probably our most important piece, because it's our sum that kind of all of our legislations fall out of. So, and the Code of Conduct. So they're the formal safeguards that I guess wrap around all of us, and they're really critical for people with disability because they guide human rights practice. They guide policy development, they ensure people's rights are protected, upheld and considered. But what they don't do, I know you're all waiting, is, as we've seen unfortunately, is they don't keep people safe, individuals safe, if their circles of support and their natural safeguards aren't strong. And so I think that's the piece that we're really here to talk about, is how do we build those natural safeguards? And what are they? So they're all the people in our lives that matter to us. They're our family, our friends, and our community. And our support workers become part of those safeguards because they really become our human rights workers who help us build community and make sure, as you said before, that we're seen and heard and known, and that our neighbours know that we live there, and that the man down the road who I get the milk from will notice if I don't turn up tomorrow and kind of go, where's Meredith? And they're the really important pieces that keep us safe.
Perfect. Now, I know that you've got an example and a story to share with us next, but I just want to touch on, because that was so valuable and so much information. I believe you've got a resource, and I'll just invite Justine to pop that in the chat box for everyone. as I mentioned before, it will also be available on the replay page, and it's a really nice visual way to look at what a natural safeguard is. Sorry for the tongue twisting there. And it's a really nice resource that Mabel have popped together for you all here today. So you'll be able to download that in the chat box now, or if you're watching the replay, just scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll see all of the resources that we mentioned there. Now, Meredith, I believe that you wanted to share a story with us. Did you want to do that now?
Absolutely. So just giving an example of a young woman who we work with. Her name is Ella, and she has an acquired brain injury. And so before her brain injury, she was really connected to her community. She was a chef. She had lots of friends. She had a really full life. But after several months and almost a year of rehabilitation and really changing her capacities in her life and really needing to build up those again, she was really left really isolated and with not many people around her. And so being able to have a look at what she needed in her life and kind of going back to what she used to do, but also developing some new things to do because she had different skills and abilities now was really important. And so finding someone who loved cooking, who would go to the markets with her where she used to always go and go back to those people who she hadn't seen for over a year and reconnect with them, find those recipes, help starting her to cook together, but also to find people and invite people over to eat with her. So we're constantly looking for these intentional connection points, which you can do when you look to your local community for your supports, because those people are already connected to their community. We call this social capital. It's the idea that because I go out with Sarah for the day, I might meet her sister who loves horse riding. I love horse riding. So we benefit from those relationships. So that's what we talk about when we talk about intentionality and natural safeguards. It's really understanding what it is that you think you might want to do, and you may have to try and test a few things. We all do. But then finding people that meet that need.
Perfect. And I love that you've mentioned there on that intentionality. In a moment, we are going to look at some intentional team building. But before we get to that, Sarah, I'd love to hear from you about working. Obviously, you mentioned you have 2 boys. So working within the vision for your boys, how did you go about defining what the vision is, or is it an ongoing process for you?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I want to also state that I had the huge advantage of attending some fantastic community workshops run by family advocacy and inclusive resourcing, inclusive communities and places like that. And so during that process, I recognised that the key elements that's going to build a good life for my child is in fact the key elements that build a good life for all of us. That in fact all humans with or without disability require valued roles in our society, and how do we have access to those, and how do we make our choices, and how do we build upon those. So once I started to get my head around those sorts of ideas, I sort of then returned to Zeke and thought about my 11-year-old, thinking what's really important to him. Now, you know, I can answer that. I know him really well, and very quickly you can understand that books and reading and literature and cartoons and all these things that he is just so incredibly passionate about. But it's also the way that he connects and interacts with the world. It's the way he understands. It's the way he builds connections. So what started for us as a vision of helping him get out and about in the community. So part of our support worker funding was obvious. Okay, he needed regular access to our local library network. That was really important. So it began with the idea of accessing. How can Zeke get plenty of regular access to the library? But then it went further on from there when I started brainstorming with our support team around what other things does access to a library bring you. Well, it brings you lots of opportunity. There's so many other roles that start with membership to your local library, but then you can actually participate in workshops or competitions or other activities during school holiday period. And then the key part for this was actually building relationships and being known. This idea that Meredith touched on of, you know, seen, heard and known in our community, that doesn't just mean knowing where everything is that you need to access, knowing where all the services are, knowing where everything is that you want. It's actually talking about your core community members, knowing who you are as well and knowing what's important to you. So then we recognised that building a relationship directly between the library staff, and Zeke was going to be a key way. So for the purposes of time, I can't tell you the whole entire story, but I'd like to just share briefly before I wrap up the milestone that we've just reached, which is, and it gets me emotional, Ezekiel's just submitted his first cartoon character story to an online kids magazine. So without this opportunity to kind of explore these connections and these ideas, then we wouldn't have, reached this point. So it's really exciting to think what's going to happen in the future.
That's so beautiful, Sarah. And sorry,
I know. I was like, sorry. I was like, don't cry. But it just gets me, because this is the stuff that builds people's lives. And in fact, I get teary. It's not just my own son, but it's actually, I get teary when I hear everyone's stories. It's so incredible. Yeah.
It is absolutely incredible, and I just want to say sincerest gratitude for being so open, for sharing that story with us, knowing how close to your heart that is. That is beautiful to share with all of us here today and with anyone watching the replay. We really appreciate it, Sarah. And Meredith, I'd love to invite you now to build upon something Sarah's actually just touched on there with that beautiful story. We often think, and in the community, especially from a provider point of view, capacity building is often directed in our thoughts towards only participants. But in Sarah's story there, we kind of went through the fact that as a parent, Sarah's also learning and building capacity. Did you want to share with us a little bit about that kind of capacity building for everyone, not just the participant?
Absolutely, and thank you, Sarah. I think our children are really lucky to have mums in their lives who do know them really well, and I think this is the significant area about capacity building, is that as people grow older and have less people in their lives and they may be more disenfranchised, it's harder to have that person, that chief advocate, that cheerleader, as I call myself, to back them up. Look, I think capacity building is really misunderstood. We're all having to build our capacity. This is a brand new world for us. And I think, I've talked to many people who've been in the sector for a really long time, as have I, and we're still on this journey. We have this funding, but we don't yet know fully how to really do the best with it that we can. And so capacity building is that importance of building the capacity of support workers, of our families, of the community, of the guy at the local shop to know how to have that conversation. We all need to learn how to do this better. And I think that's why this conversation is important, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take providers to think, I can't possibly have a list of 10 people that are all going to meet, Luke's needs. I need to actually go outside that and look into his community. So the capacity building is around understanding the needs. It's around, you may not have a mum like Sarah and I, like my daughter does, to help do that, but certainly as a teenager, let me tell you, I get that wrong often. Often. There's the intentionality of people, activities and connections. So this intentionality is about really looking into your community and going, what is it that I want to do? Or you may not know. So what can I try to sort of see if I like it? What are my passions? Who can I find who matches those passions with me? Just like Sarah said, going to that to the local library, is this amazing world opened, which is incredible. And I think in Ella's example that I used before, she was having to do swimming as part of her rehab, and she really liked, her provider was providing someone to go swimming with her, but she was a bit like me, hated getting her hair wet, so not the best support worker for swimming. And so she found this wonderful physio student who was teaching swimming at the school and brought them onto the team. So it's really looking around your community and thinking about unique people who can help build your capacity in different ways that you've never thought of. So it's that confidence, courage building, being vulnerable, I guess, is the piece that families and I think support workers have to sit in. Not all of us are really social, and not all of us are great at facilitating conversations and building capacity to have those conversations. So we all have to lean into this new space and really help people have a flourishing life. And I think a really important takeaway today is it's not just about building connection and randomly going around into the community. It's about moving those connections into fellowship, meaningful activities and friendship. So that's our next step that we're always aiming for. We need to know people, but we also need to move into that space where they want to know us too. And that's the next challenge that and I think that's why using people from your local community really helps in that space.
And I love that. Can I just go back to that? Sorry, can I just go back to that phrase that you use there, Meredith? I think it's so, so key, which is sometimes overlooked, is the idea of trying things out. Yeah, you know, sometimes we talk about planning and goal setting and things, but sometimes we're going to try things out and it's not going to be right. It's not going to be suitable, or perhaps, you know, a person needs to change their mind for whatever reason. That is in fact, you know, a choice as well. And so I think that resilience of sort of trying something out and then reassessing and then moving in a different direction in relation to building connections in our community is also part of the success. Yeah, it's so important.
And I think an example is, you know, I was thinking the other day, taking someone to the pharmacy. I was watching a support worker do all of the interactions while the person stood behind them. And I was thinking it's a great example of the pharmacist doesn't really know how to have the conversation either. So, you know, you really need to start the conversation together and then stepping back. And then the goal is I don't have to go to the pharmacy anymore because I know that person's going to go have a great conversation. They've seen them for the day and I move on to something else where I can help connect them. So that's the intentionality that we talk about.
I love that, and thank you both so much. That build upon is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure our audience is finding it very valuable. To flow on from that, I think this is actually a good time for us to talk about strengthening support. So obviously we've mentioned key team members here. I'm just going to move our slide deck along there. So we mentioned before, Meredith, you introduced this idea of intentional and that intentionality behind building our team. So when we think about key team members, what does that really mean?
So I guess to start with, it means that blue sky thinking. So what is it that I might like to do and who might be able to do it with me? So this isn't going to, you know, one provider. I don't go to one place and have my nails done and my back done and my hair done. You know, I go to different places for those strengths. So really helping someone guide you. And I think when you don't have a Sarah or a Meredith in your life to help do that, you need someone to do that. That can be that could be a cause. It could be a main person in your family. It could be a great friend. It doesn't matter who it is, but you may need is someone to help you with that sort of support with your decision making. So really thinking about that, what do I want to do? What do I want to try, as we said before? What skills might someone need to do that? And then where can I go looking? And I think this is the exciting piece is, you know, looking. I had a really lovely example of someone the other day who lost a worker to back to England, and they've been going to this regular coffee shop every day, and they really, really liked the Michelle's patisserie worker, who was always really delightful. And she said, I'm about to lose my job. And this young person went, you know what, they'd be fantastic on my team. They're always really nice to me. They're a great cook. We could do great things together. And I think this is what the NDIS can do for people. It can actually create possibilities. And so sort of widening your vision from just, I need a support worker. Like with Ella, she needed someone to take her swimming who loved swimming, not someone who didn't. So thinking once again, that meaningful connection, who can I find from my local community who might then know other people who I can connect with, because often you do get that kind of gathering of people together. And then really importantly, the goal of that support worker is as a human rights worker. It's to look for paid and unpaid opportunities. This is not about creating a whole team of people around you who are paid. This is about creating really important connections. When I think of the best life for my daughter moving forward, I never think about a world full of providers that look after her. I think about a world surrounded with people who love her. That's my goal.
I love that. And that really comes back to this idea of community and forming those community connections and really building for your daughter there, Meredith, building what her community looks like and fulfilling her vision. And that's something obviously you're helping with your mum hat on right now, but building and looking towards the future is always important, no matter what age a child is at, or if you're a young adult or a mature adult, it doesn't matter. It's always this looking forward and looking at what does my community look like, or as you mentioned there, Meredith, so rightly, this blue sky thinking, what would I love for my community to look like? So I'd love for us to,
I just want to build on that quickly, Mel. Is the other really important piece is what skills do I need in my team? So I may have a specific support that I do require a specific skill for. So there is this kind of health literacy piece about, you know, is there some, just because I might need help in the morning with showering doesn't mean I need the same sort of work throughout the day. So really thinking about, for that task, is there a specific skill I need so that I make sure that that's still, you know, at the forefront. And then there's also workers, of course, who will then build on those skills if they really want to keep working with you. So those opportunities are really important.
I love that you've just pinched my next question I was going to ask you, so we'll move right along. And I just want to give a shout out to Bernadette, who has shared with everyone here that community for Bernadette is what they call our constellation. I absolutely love that, Bernadette, and I hope you don't mind my sharing that with everyone. It's a really nice way to look at it. The other conversation, which can, let's be honest, from time to time get a bit awkward, is feedback. So when we think about our support team and those that we're building, whether they're formal or informal supports, as we're building our community here that we're talking about today, if we think about, say, a support worker, what does feedback really look like? How should we be thinking about this?
Is it Sarah or me who wants to answer this question first?
I don't mind. I'll let you guys decide.
You go, Meredith. That's fine. You can start off. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is the piece that we talked about. This is where you won't always get it right the first time. And this is the possibilities, I think, with the NDIS. So you have to try, you have to lean in. I think it takes, with experience with my daughter, I think it takes about 3 sessions to kind of lean in together. You know, the person might be a bit shy at first. You also have to be really brave and say, this is how I'd like to be supported. But you're also forming a relationship. And so obviously if things don't go well initially, then you need to have a conversation about that. But it's about having that checklist, getting someone to support you to really identify. Sometimes it's just an uncomfortable feeling of this didn't go well and you need to have a conversation. Was it just that, you know, he said he was a funny guy and he wasn't very funny? You might find out, right, I don't know. But those conversations are about building relationships, and you need to be, you know, our people need to be really brave about going, this is kind of what I want it to look like. And as parents, when we're in the house too, I think we have to remember, well, for me with a teenager, that she might like something that I don't, but we check in on that. So first of all, understanding you won't get it right the first time. I think it takes a little while to build that support team that meet all your needs and to get the right ones. You have to be brave enough to go, well, that didn't work and this is what it's about. I'm going to try someone else. Now I know that this is more important to me than that, for example. And I think the critical thing is having that feedback. And I think encouraging support workers to do the same, to say, oh, look, I just felt a bit uncomfortable in this situation. So that relationship building brings us back to capacity building, doesn't it? It's, you know, we're all learning. We're all trying to be a little vulnerable and a little courageous and say, okay, that didn't work, and that's perfectly fine. And I've seen support workers go, I don't think I can bring value to your life. This is a little bit difficult. And I would much rather they said that and we keep going. So I think that's really important. What do you do, Sarah, with your feedback?
Look, absolutely. When you say, I'm so glad you said we're all learning, because heck, I'm still learning. And certainly if I just touch on my 10-year-olds, my younger son's support network, I certainly find initially I sort of, you know, had an orientation system set up, you know, and I had a series, and now I sort of have taken a step back, and I realize that I want to get to know how the support worker would best like this, you know, first getting to know us kind of process to go. So sometimes I say, look, I've got a lot of background prepared. I've got this, and this. We can do a sit down formal, or if you'd like to just more spend time with us and just do that time in our house with us, observing myself, supporting Spencer, and observing another experienced, you know, support worker doing shifts and things like that. Or should we perhaps, you know, come up with another process? Sometimes I've found that I'm a detailed person and so sometimes, you know, to be honest, I've overwhelmed staff before. Absolutely overwhelmed staff with a level of detail that's all important, but they don't need to know it all on, you know, at the beginning of the relationship. So I definitely think I try to sort of, once we decide we're going to start this process together, I try and, you know, it's a bit of a team effort in that way. In relation to feedback, I always like to check in, particularly in our situation where there is a lot of safety concerns, physical safety concerns. There's a lot of things that the support workers need to keep in mind. I always make a priority of checking in with them, and experience, you know, a small amount of experience has already told me that assumptions are never good, you know, and they can, you know, lead to bigger problems. So always checking in and asking how they think it's going. and leaving plenty of time for that connection. Sometimes I also offer, the funded time to actually connect with the therapy team. If it's a relevant type of level of support, then I will say, do you want to come and have a conversation and meet Spencer's occupational therapist, or do you want to do this? Because I feel that their role is so important, and I love that you call it a human rights worker, Meredith. It's so important, then I need to invest in that. And so what resources can I bring to enable them, I guess, to really connect with us? And then the magic happens. I get people, return from a shift, perhaps they've been out in community, and they say, hey, I've got an idea. I'd like, would you like it if I introduced Spencer or tried this new activity? Would you like to come along and meet the owner of this business? He's keen on working, with your boys. And that's the type of thing I don't have those connections. And so some workers just open up so many doors for us. It's really amazing.
I love that,
I think
Sarah. Sorry, Meredith, just conscious of time. We're just going to have to move it along here. I know that both Meredith and Sarah would talk to you guys for hours, but I'm very respectful of everyone's time. And something that's really key that you've both touched on there is communication. And it's a two-way street. So having communication with, say, a support worker, and also allowing a support worker to have that open communication with you if they don't think they're going to add value, as you mentioned, Meredith. Yeah. And if they feel comfortable to say, I don't think I'm the right fit for you, is the same conversation that we're having if we're saying, I don't think you're the right fit for me or for my child or for my person that I am supporting. So I think it's really important that we always come back to, and I know at Plan Tracker, we're all about communication. So you'll hear any session from us, we always touch on it without fail. But Meredith has gathered some great resources from Helen Sanderson, which I'll invite Justine just to pop up in the chat box. There is some little videos on the pages that you can go through after the session. Again, they'll be available on the replay page. So if you're watching the replay, just scroll down and you'll find those there. But what I'd love to talk to you both about just quickly before we move on is, when is it the right time to part ways with a support worker? So if we've had this open communication and maybe they're not hearing us, is there a right or a wrong time to part ways, Meredith? Or is it just, that's really my decision?
Look, I think it's your decision, and if you're really uncomfortable, you part ways that moment. It's over. And I think when we talk about connections and the fact that they're there to reduce vulnerability, there are all sorts of, people live in trauma and there's all sorts of triggers for them. And if it's not working, you should never be afraid to say, this is not working. And so I think it is really up to the person. In saying that, what I was going to say before is we do have obligations in self-management, and we have obligations to make sure that we've given enough information about how we want to be supported, so that you're not letting someone guess what it is that you need. So making sure that you've done your piece around I explain what I needed, the communication part. And then if they're unable to meet that, then I think it's okay to go, this isn't working. And that's a piece that's going to take a while, I think, to build capacity and have people the courage to say, it's not working, I want to move on, because there's great opportunities and possibilities ahead.
Perfect. I love that. Now, stemming from that, something that is working great for some and not working so well for others is when face-to-face isn't possible. So obviously we are still, for many of us, and especially our community in Victoria at this time, and others who are vulnerable for many, many different reasons throughout the country and throughout the world, a lot of us can't do face-to-face at the moment. So I thought we'd have a conversation around virtual connections. And Meredith, I know you and I have had a conversation before this session around when it doesn't feel right for us and when it does, and when it's okay just to say, you know what, I'm going to find someone else. So I thought we'd start here. How do we connect with our community in a virtual space? I mean, it's COVID-19 or coronavirus, as it's otherwise known. Is there kind of any tips you can give us for connecting with our community during this time, Meredith?
Look, there's obviously many different ways, but Mabel's worked really hard during this time to make sure people continue to receive what they think are their essential supports. And a lot of that, as we've talked about, is really reducing loneliness and isolation. So being able to video chat with workers and actually meet them on video chat has been really important. And I think this has been a time, there's never been a more person-centered time, I believe, because my essential supports are really, really different, for example, to Sarah's or yours, Mel. And so it's up to us us to define, you know, how important that is based on whether I have a great circle of support that's coming to visit me anyway. But if I only have that support worker who's coming and cooking with me or eating with me, that's really, really critical. Or I need support cleaning my home, I can't do it alone, then, you know, when the risks versus benefits is kind of outweighed, it's really important. So we thought it was really important from the very beginning of COVID to find ways that people could connect and receive those supports. And, you know, we've got lovely examples of people like Ella who for a couple of weeks there, they chose their recipes online. The worker will go out and buy the food, leave it at the front door. They'd go home and they'd cook it together over the Mabel video chat platform, and then they'd eat it together over the platform, which is a really lovely way to keep those pieces going and invite people to that Zoom dinner, which is really special. And I think that's the safety in that as well. But you're also making sure that someone's touching base with someone who really needs those connections to keep them safe.
They definitely do, and I absolutely love that extended just beyond, beyond just cooking the meal together, but actually having that social community interaction of a dinner and inviting others to participate. It's a great way to connect, and it's something we've seen a lot. Obviously, a lot of you are familiar with, and we're currently on Zoom today, so that's a popular video platform that is going around. Other platforms like FaceTime, and there's lots and lots of video calls and different sorts of platforms. We won't go through them all, but obviously the question is, can I receive supports virtually? And obviously, as Meredith has just answered there for everyone, yes, you absolutely can. And it's been great to see companies like Mabel really respond to the needs of the community during this time, and to look at innovative ways that we can engage and still retain and maintain and also develop new community connections. And Sarah, I know obviously having two boys, do you have any gamers in your lovely household?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Short answer, yes, we do. And absolutely, I mean, we've actually intentionally gone and found a support worker that is quite savvy on the platforms and the whole gaming thing, because quite frankly, I'm not, and I'm not going to learn it very quickly. Nor does Zeke really want me to be the one that does that with him, to be honest. So we've actually we're building it right now. We're sort of starting, what skills do you need in isolation, and then where are the safe spaces? Can you build private gaming groups such as Nintendo, and there's a Minecraft community and things where you can actually have a lot of, I guess you'd say they're called parental controls, but, you know, adult supervision who set the parameters, and you only admit certain people in. So we're looking at that. There's also organisations that provide platforms. One that comes to mind is the ICANN network, and they provide, it's an autistic-led mentoring group sort of platform where they have focused interest groups or things like that, and there's a variety of different things. So I think that definitely looking around, staying connected on our Facebook communities is one where I find out what's going on, you know, in the virtual world, whether it's through our NDIS closed group or other sources. I can see what's happening and I can explore that, and then I take it back to our subject matter experts in our support team, and then they basically help us decide, you know, is this going to be a good addition or not? And I think also with the idea of staying safe online as well, this is an ever-changing environment, and I definitely appreciate having the backup of people who really understand the online and tech and gaming community really well, and so they can help me put the things in place that keep Ezekiel safe.
Beautiful. And I love that you're building that kind of the subject matter experts within Zeke's team, obviously in this case. I think that's a really good tip for everyone. And obviously just maintaining that supervision is really vital for success, and making sure that you're checking in with how potentially the individual is feeling while they're engaging online, after online kind of engagements, especially with gaming platforms. Obviously they are quite an open community, if you like, but definitely great tips there, Sarah, on some of those parental controls that can kind of restrict the audience a bit to keep the individual safer as they're engaging online. Something I just wanted to touch on, because you've mentioned Facebook groups there, just from a staying safe online, obviously it's not legal advice, but just our tips for everyone's privacy is that privacy really matters. So Something we always recommend for the community, obviously, we have the NDIS Plan and Self-Management Facebook community, which is a closed group that everyone is welcome to join. And we will pop that link on the replay page for you. But something we always recommend is if someone's reaching out to you in private messages or direct messages and they're asking for, say, your NDIS plan details or date of birth, it's really not a safe platform to be exchanging that information. So if, say, it's a business provider, I'm sure Mabel would never ask for it on this platform at all. So if someone from Mabel reached out to you, you're likely to hear from them from their business email or from a business phone. So they're also likely to provide that information. So if you're a provider as well listening in, if someone is asking for supports and you can deliver those supports that they're seeking, then instead of asking, can I send you a DM or a PM, offer your business contact details. So a business phone number, a business email. Do you have a website where they can reach you? It's a much more professional and a safer way for them to get in touch with you. And it also, for both sides, it's just a safer relationship foundation as you go forward. But just conscious of time, ladies, I'd really love for us to talk about finding the right supports together. So obviously we have the fantastic team from Mabel joining us here today. And Meredith, I'd love to pick your brains for a minute about connecting all these dots. So we've talked about a lot of things with regards to natural safeguards, building and strengthening our teams. So in terms of connecting with support workers, what are the benefits of using local community connections?
So the major benefits are that you build social capital. So if you use someone from your local community, they're going to know stuff about your local community. They're going to know people in the community. So straight away you're benefiting over having someone that comes from suburbs away. And they're also, other people are going to know them. So if anything happened and you were out together, you know more about that person because other people come and talk to them and they come and talk to you. So that's, I guess, the really important part. The other is that you can bring anyone that you want onto Mabel. So as I said, Ella, in the end, brought her great physiotherapy student onto the platform to work with her on her team. And what that means is that you're not just stuck with the people who are around you. You can actually look really openly. And for me, I've self-employed people over the course of being a mother, as we all do with babysitters and au pairs and things. And the real benefit is that when I know I get a Mabel worker, we call it empowerment with safeguards. So all of those safeguards are done for me. So I've already got, as we've said, a busy job and a busy life. But I know when I can find someone from the community and I can bring them onto the platform, or their worker screening's done, their qualifications are checked, my invoices can go. It just makes my life easier and I know it's safer. So I think for me that's one of the major benefits. And yes, you can still employ other people, but lots of people are really happy to come and work with my daughter on the platform because then they get to offer their services to other people as well. So I think just reiterating what we've been saying, local often means safer because you do layer upon those safeguards. You also get to meet other people who aren't paid. So there's more opportunity for this flourishing life that we're all aiming for, where as mums, we're no longer the centre of that. It's really hard, Sarah, I'm warning you. So it's really important that we step back and we let other people take over, and other people who really love our people wrap around them rather than us and rather than providers. So the most important role in all of this is that workers understand their responsibilities to help people be connected, to help people be seen, known and heard, and to purposefully try and build those connections, become the fabric of the community, same place every day, every week, not just randomly shopping, but really thinking intentionally, how am I changing this life with this person? How are we doing it together? And how am I reducing their need on me? And where can I put my effort somewhere else with this person in their life?
Beautiful. I really like how it's building that confidence, as we like to say at Plan Tracker, of knowing that Mabel is a platform, and obviously there's plenty of others, but we have you here, so we're going to talk all about Mabel today. That Mabel is really instilling that confidence of having the natural safeguards built into this process. So you're taking a bit of that stress away from me as a participant or as a mum, and really kind of, I'm just going, okay, I can bring my support worker. Mabel's doing a lot of these safeguard checks for me. So I know that my worker is vetted, but I also know that I can BYO. And I loved that as well, that I can connect with someone in the community. Obviously, we looked at the story earlier of bringing the individual who worked at Michelle's Patisserie across. So I love that, giving her an opportunity where she was falling out of work, but had a great connection, and bringing her across into that. So that is fantastic. Sarah, I'd love to throw across to you. We talk a lot about plan Bs. So life happens, obviously, for all of us, regardless of our roles, our social situations, our community, anything. Life happens. It is just the nature of life. So, do you have any tips for us with regards to when plans change? What do you do?
Look, I think I always run with a plan A, B, and a C, and so that enables me. I call it pivoting. I'm not quite sure. I mean, that sort of carries quite a positive, positive undertone to me. But it absolutely is having more than one option, and being creative also redefining what success looks like at any given moment. And I cannot stress this enough, coming back to the very beginning of the conversation, which is having that vision, having that really clear vision. So Ezekiel and myself are very similar in the way that we're quite visual. We actually have that vision board hung up in the house, and we update it quite regularly, and so it's a visual representation with a few key quotes or words or phrases that are meaningful to him. So it is an active process of reconnecting with that vision that enables us to then be ready, I guess, and able to, when plans don't go to change, when plans don't go to plan. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know if Meredith would agree that a really strong vision enables you to overcome those unknowns.
Absolutely. You have to have a plan for everything, and you have to be able to, well, I have to kind of risk manage things that happen too. And I think something that Mabel did during COVID, which was a great COVID response, was create Mabel Last Minute, which was this amazing opportunity for, our consumers and participants were experiencing lots of services pulling out and not being able to provide services. And so this was an opportunity to say within 4 hours of, I need someone to work with me to actually go on the platform and really quickly have someone come and do something. But more importantly, which I love, is that life does happen and suddenly you get an invitation to go somewhere fantastic. You've got a great team. However, you don't have anyone that's on shift. And so you can go onto the platform and find someone to come and do that with you, and not have to go through an agency for extra costs. It's all the same hourly rate. And I think that's really exciting in communities. And you might find that you want to use that worker more regularly as well.
And I love being able to just message directly and find out what sort of the availability is beforehand. So then I know, if it's a particular time of day or a particular day or whatever, then I can just go on and I know where people are at generally, whether there's a chance they'll be available short notice, which is really handy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Really, I love the reframe there, Meredith, as well, that it's not always this contingency plan of someone cancelled or something went wrong. It's when something goes right and you get a really exciting opportunity, and having a support worker available within that really short period of hours. Justine's just popped a link in the chat box for everyone. If you're on the replay page, you'll find that down below as well. That is Mabel Last Minute. So where you can find last minute support workers to hopefully go and do exciting things, but if you need that plan B, that's also a great place to check it out. Now, I'm just conscious of everyone's time here, ladies. I'm just going to pop some contact details up on the screen for everyone. So this is for the team at Plan Tracker if you're looking for a plan manager, or obviously Mabel if you're looking for support workers, or if you're looking to BYO a support worker, as Meredith has mentioned. But Meredith, was there something you'd like to leave everyone here with today?
Look, I think this is just an amazing opportunity for us to all work together to look into our communities. The support provided to people, really whatever age or circumstance, needs to really ensure that that magic in their relationships thrive and really remain meaningful. So here's a chance to look into our communities to find really unique people to meet our needs. We all need to support people to build people-centered lives, not service-centered lives, one connection at a time. And so here's our opportunity together to really make a difference and to redesign support into a world where relationships really matter and the focus of supports are about connections. So thank you so much for the opportunity today.
Oh, we're very grateful to have you here, Meredith. And Sarah, was there any last words for our audience today?
I just wanted to share that it's a journey. It's not an ultimate destination. So keeping that in mind allows you to look at new opportunities, to try different things, and to start conversations, ask questions, and you never know where it will lead.
Fantastic. I love that open-ended of where will it lead, and we don't all know. So that's fantastic. Yeah. There's lots of thank yous for you both. And on behalf of everyone who's joined us live today or who is watching the webinar replay, I want to say a huge, huge thank you for you both for taking the time to prepare and also to join us for today's session. So much value for the community. I'm sure I'm actually going to go and rewatch this session a few times myself because there's so many things to learn here. Obviously, if you are looking for a plan manager or a self-management app as well, you can get in touch with the team at Plan Tracker on 1-800-549-670 or email hello@plantracker.com.au. And obviously, as we mentioned, we've had our fantastic webinar partners here today from the team at Mabel. So a huge thanks to Meredith and Melanie, who's in the chat box with us, and everyone else on the team who has supported. If you would like to get in touch with the Mabel team or you have any questions for either, so Mabel can be reached on, and I'm just going to read this so I get it right, 1300-736-573, or you can email info@mabel.com.au. Those contact details will be on the webinar replay page as well. And on behalf of everyone who's joined us here today and all of our presenters, we thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you online again sometime very soon. Until next time, we hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.